So I just wanted to show you the Bass 6 by Squier, which I picked up recently. The reason I picked up one was because I quite often have to track bass, but I'm not a bass player. I'm not particularly good on bass, and I struggle. I have a jazz bass, and I kind of struggle getting my hands around it, playing the kind of bass lines I can hear. I can't actually play on the bass, so I thought I'd give one of these a try. And that, in the UK, at the shop price is about $291 pretty much everywhere. It's almost nothing, and it's well worth checking out. And I just wanted to share a couple of things about them. They've sort of had people raving about them, and also people sort of being heavily critical of the build quality. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experiences with it. Just about the bass in general, one of the things that's really cool about it, that I like, is if you like that sort of Carol K muted bass approach, it's actually really cool for that kind of thing. So you can sort of palm mute it rather like a guitar. That kind of approach, or that strange buzzing, I think, is my mixing desk. Anyway, the other nice thing about it, which is, I believe, the reason why Fender originally introduced these in the 60s, is a lot of bass players in the 60s were actually kind of like me, guitar players who were forced to play bass sometimes, and sort of a 6-string 30-inch scale, which this is, so it's closer to guitar than a regular bass is anyway, allowed players to record sessions and sight read without having to change position, so they could be a lot more comfortable. So that works great for me as well, because, you know, theoretically I think the bass for sight reading shouldn't be as hard as I make it, because it's just 4 strings, an octave lower than the lowest 4 strings on a guitar, but it's the shifts of position that I don't normally make on guitar that might throw me. So this is actually really good. So I have the same range, just an octave lower, as I have on guitar, which is great. So I like that about it. It's got a whammy, which is pretty cool. You've got to give it a bit of... It kind of works, and you can play nice chords on it. High up works best. It's really too muddy in that kind of range, although you can do kind of cool things that would normally be picking things on guitar. Still a bit fumbly. So that's all cool. So for me it works great. I thought it was worth taking a punt, and I kind of thought, you know, if I really like it and I really take to it, then maybe long term I might think about one of the custom shop Fender Bass 6s. I'm not sure how much better they would be. This is pretty good. I mean, for $291 it's an absolute steal. But worth checking out. Now there's a couple of things that are really cool about it. I was going to get onto the negatives then, and then I thought I should keep the positives first. One is different to the pawn shop version. It's got the switches like the original Bass 6. The original one, I believe, only had the 3, just on off for each pickup. So front pickup, middle pickup, back pickup. They all sound kind of similar. I've got the amp set up for a bit of a sort of retro, very low end kind of sound, so I'm not getting a lot of distinction here. Obviously there's a tone control which controls them all, which is worth playing around with because the rear pickup a little bit twangy for me, but if you roll off the tone a little bit, it's quite nice. A bit more. Too much. That's kind of cool. I mean, my preferred one is front pickup. It's nice and retro sounding. So that's really cool. The whammy, I'm not sure how much I'd ever use it. I actually have done a recording session with this, and I did use it for kind of effect. And you do have to give it quite a bit of welly. It's kind of fun to have though. The one thing this has that was on the Bass 6, but the later models of the Bass 6, is it has what they call a strangle switch here, next to the 3 pickup selectors. What it actually does, it's like a high pass filter or a bass cut filter. So if I'm on front pickup and I bring in the strangle switch, you can hear it's just cut some of that low out of it. I've got this amp setting pretty bass heavy actually, but without and with. Now I'm not sure, I did hear that the strangle switch was actually introduced for guitar players occasionally playing a Bass 6, so it may be through the guitar amp, so they were just cutting the low end to try not to do too big a mischief to the guitar amp. I actually haven't checked whether that's true or not, but it's kind of makes sense a little bit. So the nice thing about the switches also is you can do combinations you can't do with blade. The pawnshop version is a blade switch like the Telecaster or the Strat has, so with this I could have front pickup and back pickup, so I can have this sort of bite of the back pickup and that soft front. You blend the two together. You did see there actually one of the problems that's come up on a lot of forums about these, not just the Squier actually, the Fender one as well, is I think although the official website says they come out with 95 bass, pretty sure this and certainly a lot of the Squiers that have been shipped is an 84, which is on the standard Fender Bass 6 string size, and Diodario's Bass 6 strings are also the same gauge. And what you find is it's actually, if I just move into the camera, you can see it's a pretty loose low string. It's actually fine amplified. Sorry, bashing my chair there. It's fine amplified. I find it's not really causing me any problems. But without the amplification, if you can hear this, it's not slightly uneven. Yeah, it's a bit too floppy, really. But that is a sacrifice that you kind of make having a bass slash baritone slash guitar like this. So that's one of the issues that's come up. The other issue that's come up, a lot of people on forums complaining about the poor setup of these when they've arrived. People who've ordered them online. I got mine from a shop, and basically I don't buy guitars I haven't played. They vary so much. Even the Gibsons and Fenders vary from guitar to guitar. Two Les Pauls of the same spec, as far as I'm concerned, can be quite different if you try them out. So I only will buy a guitar I've tried out, with one exception. I did buy a PRS baritone mail order once, and I kind of felt I could trust PRS as a fairly uniform, sort of standard, high quality company. But what you find on the cheaper models, the budget models, is one of the areas where money saved is quality control. So you really do need to try them out. And also a shop probably give them something of a playable setup if they've come out of the box unplayable. Whereas if you buy them direct or by mail order, you might not get that. So I did spend a bit of time setting this up, but one of the problems that people have talked about is there's been a lot of complaints looking at forums about the nut, the cut of the nut. This one looked pretty bad. I'll bring it over here. But actually, when I cleaned it up, I just sort of took the strings off, and there was all bits of plastic sticking out because it's, you know, it's a synthetic nut. I cleaned those off with a craft knife, and actually it's not bad. I mean, it's not too low, it doesn't buzz. What a lot of people are doing, they're buying the Squier, but then they're changing this for a bone nut, which is definitely something I'm probably going to do at some point. The other thing that people are doing is they're putting heavy gauge strings on. Now, one of the things with the Bass 6, you can't just go and buy a single bass string from a shop and replace that one, because the way these machine heads work, they're a much smaller hole. They're almost like guitar machine heads if you look. So there's much smaller holes to get your string in. So actually, I don't know if I can show you this. I'll try. If you're on a Bass 6, if you look about here, the string actually tapers in. The wind, there's not as much wind there, so it will go through these holes, whereas regular bass strings won't necessarily do that. Now there is a company called, I think it's called Labella, American company, that make a heavy gauge Bass 6 set that fit with a 95 on the bottom instead of an 84. And they also do flat wounds and round wounds, so a lot of people are going for these. It does look like a good option, so I'm thinking about going for that. It may involve cutting the nut, or so if I'm going to make a new nut anyway, maybe I'll do that. The main problem with these, that people seem to agree is the main problem, is actually the bridge. Basically, it's essentially a Jazzmaster back here, and it has a Jazzmaster bridge. Now, Jazzmaster bridges are problematic on Jazzmasters, and you're probably aware that a common mod is to put a Mustang bridge on the Jazzmaster. If I just show you how this is set up. Now, I've already tweaked this quite a lot, but the problem you get here, I'll get my hair out of the way, is each one is individual, and you can set the height by these Allen keys here. What you've noted, well, you've probably noticed this already, mine's on back to front. Now this is something I found online was a solution to this problem. When it's the right way around, you can't get the bass string bridge part back far enough and this sort of high E one close enough to get it to intonate properly. What you get is the string starts touching this screw here, or the back piece, so you're screwing this back and back and back and back, and what happens is suddenly the string is touching the screw, so actually the point at which you're setting your intonation suddenly jumps forward like half a centimetre or something like that. So this was really problematic. So essentially it's not very good for the job. But help is at hand. There is a company called Staytrem, and they do replacement bridges for Jazzmasters, and I believe they make the replacement bridge that Johnny Marr uses on his Jazzmasters. So that's cool. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to swap this stock one out, and I'm going to put a Staytrem one on that I've already ordered actually. And then what I'll do is I'll play this a little bit more, then I'm going to swap bridges over and just show you that, and then see if it's made any difference to the sound. I shouldn't imagine it shouldn't make too much, but it should intonate much better. If I just show you that bridge, and what you can see is, first of all, if I compare the two, it's actually wider, so that allows us more room to bring the saddle closer or further away, so we've got more scope to intonate it basically, and we can put it the right way around. The other improvement, instead of Phillips screws, where you've got to get a Phillips in here, which is quite twiddly, these are actually Allen key screws, so you could use the short side of the Allen key and adjust it much easier when it's on. So this is the Staytrem bridge that I'm going to put on, and then we'll have a look at this later. I mean, I'm used to playing a long scale baritone. I have a PRS baritone. I'm used to heavy strings on my regular guitars. The kind of cool thing about this, which is annoying to real bass players as opposed to pretend bass players like me, is you can do a lot of your licks from guitar, and your bass player suddenly is freaked out that you seem to be able to play better bass solos than him. Which is kind of nifty. The one thing about it is you can't play, I mean, when I do play bass I can play fingerstyle. I don't like to, which is another reason why I kind of started using a pick, because I have long nails on this hand, and I find on my full-size jazz bass I wear them out. But on this I use the pick. You can do that, and I think Jack Bruce used to play with fingers when he had one of these, but it's great with a pick. You can damp with your hand, as I mentioned earlier, and you can actually play pretty kind of fast licks. Which is pretty neat if you have to lay a bass solo down. But also the kind of thing I really like about it is playing, as I mentioned before, those sort of picking things. They give a really different atmosphere once you do them on the bass, which is quite neat. So there's some pros and cons about this. I'm going to do the mod, and then we'll have a look at it again and see where we're up to. Maybe I'll make another video if I do change the strings and redo the nut. I might make another video. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll be back with the mod. Thank you.